Greetings, viewers. How are you doing? Welcome to Full Record Jacket with Phil and Ben, the show where we discuss anything music. And, well, Ben, I've got two things to talk about, really.
Not
And
Taylor Swift again.
Don't worry, it ain't Taylor Swift.
It ain't Tay-Tay.
We're going back to the 50s. We're starting in the 50s with this because I thought I'd show something, and then I thought it would spark off a discussion. But I don't want to go on too long about this artist because you know what I'm like. You know, I could get nerdy and then bore everybody. But I'm going to show you the box set I've got, which is a completely
Go on then.
insane
Let's have a look
box
at
set.
it.
This is the outer cover of it. This is a CD set, but it looks massive. This is Jerry Lee Lewis.
Oh, you went with somebody uncontroversial then for this discussion.
So this is a box on the German label Bear Family, who do a lot of these reissues when they get the rights to these masters, and they put together some quite sumptuous packages. They've done it with Chuck Berry, they've done it with many of them, and this is their Jerry Lee Lewis box, which is basically the collected works. Jerry Lee Lewis at Sun Records. Subtitle: What the hell else do you need? That's the box it comes in, and inside there you get 3 volumes, and well, you get the CDs. Okay, these are all the recordings that Jerry Lee Lewis made, by the way, between 1956 and 1963, when he was signed to Sun Records, which of course was the label that
his uncontroversial period.
Yeah. Elvis Presley was signed to Sun Records, of course, in his early days. So was Johnny Cash. Roy Orbison briefly recorded for them. Carl Perkins and many others as well, of course. Ike Turner with Jackie Brenston's Delta Cats, which I think also had Ike Turner, and they did Rocket 88 on Sun. There's all sorts of classic records were made on Sun. This is an 18.
Oh, look at this! Set. I'm getting some snacks being bought in. Oh, look at that! I've got a drink.
This is an 18 disc set. I mean, this is bonkers. You see how many CDs are in there?
Oh, it's got like frog spawn in it. This has.
Nice.
I've been given a drink which has basically got frog spawn in the bottom. Sorry, Philster.
So in this set, you get a whole load of essays about, well, you get the photos as well. There's, there we go. I'm just trying to find the opening.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of pictures of Lewis.
Oh, it's fruit. Okay.
Now, see, I have this theory that Jerry Lee Lewis is underrated by some people. I mean, obviously he's one of the legends of rock and roll, the early rock and roll era. But I think he's one of the great kind of stylists and interpreters of American song. He's unique. You know, there's no one else quite like him. And as the piano, for me, I don't know what it is. Since I was a kid, I've always been just drawn to Jerry Lee Lewis. I don't know why. It's just his piano style, his sound of his vocals, the fact he didn't sound quite like anything else. Yeah, in fact, he's a bit crazy. And, it's the rock and roll stuff that I liked originally, and then I've gradually got to like some of his country stuff from later in his career as well. But there's a whole book there of information about the recordings, and there's another one that's full of all sorts of photos of just from right through that period, from 56 to 63. Some of these are fan photos that were taken at the time. So it's a massive book. There's all sorts of stuff in here. But it does include some footage from the period in 1958 when he came to the UK.
That tour went well.
That tour went, let's say, slightly awry because Myra came on the tour. And if anyone doesn't know, we're talking about
Myra Gale Brown. Myra Gale Brown, wasn't it?
Yep, she was his... Well, let's get this right.
Cousin first removed?
Yeah, some people think that she was his second cousin or third cousin, but that's not actually correct. She was actually his first cousin once removed. So basically, she was the daughter of his first cousin. Let's let that sink in to start with, okay? And she was aged 13 at the time.
Yes.
And he was
22?
22. Yep.
Now, I've seen a picture of them in the past. They're together. I'm not sure if it's from, I think it's from about 1958. And I know she's only 13, but she looks 13.
Yeah. Now, here's a newspaper article from the UK at that time. Jerry Lee Lewis, the rock and roll singer who married a 13-year-old girl, was booed and jeered by teenagers in a 2,000-strong audience last night as he loped around the stage of the Granada Theatre in Tooting. 22-year-old Lewis taunted his audience. "You all seem awful quiet out there. I'm alive, so I hope you ain't as half dead as you sound." And some of them yelled back, "Go home, baby snatcher." Now, I think when the tour started, she turned up. They didn't really, the music press didn't really know who she was. The journalists didn't know who she was. Then they told people that she was 15, and then it
still doesn't make it any better.
Then it transpired that she was actually married to him, and then it transpired that she was 13. Now, at the time, it was legal in Louisiana for him to marry his 13-year-old cousin. Except, well, it would have been if he hadn't been married already, because it gets worse, because he was bigamously married.
Yes, he wasn't even divorced, was he? Because he'd been married twice before, and I think he was still married to Jane Mitchum at the time.
I think you've got that from Wikipedia, haven't you, Ben? Rather than the depths of your
Before we did this, I did some brief research, and I am
very well.
It. Yes, thank you.
You've done very well. Well, all of this brings me to ask the question: Can we? Should we? Separate the art from the artist? Here's the art
from the artist.
Let's have a quick look at a Daily Mail headline from the time. "Clear out this gang." That's
child
what they said.
Snatcher. She does look young there, I must say. But, the Deep South.
It's just bonkers. Now, what was I going to say? Where was I going with this? Yeah, I read an article not long ago, and it was written by some American journalist, and it was a list of artists who should not be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Is Lee Lewis in there?
Well, some of the artists were listed that they shouldn't be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because they're not properly rock and roll, okay?
Okay.
That was the reason for most of them not being in there. But then there was other reasons for some of them. And Jerry Lee Lewis was listed, and it was said, this particular journalist said, although he may have been important in rock and roll history, his music, he shouldn't be celebrated because of his personal life. And of course, there were also allegations later on in life, and I'm don't want to go too far down that route because you can't libel dead people, but I don't want to cast too many aspersions because I wasn't there. I didn't know Jerry Lee Lewis. We can stick to the facts that he did marry Myra Gale Brown when he was 13. That's known fact.
Yeah, it's the facts.
Other allegations about his behaviour during his marriages have been made, but obviously, I wasn't there. But those allegations were made by.
It'd be weird if you were there, Phil.
It would have been weird. So the question is, should I still be enjoying the music of someone who was, let's say, controversial?
Yeah.
And I've always taken this view that I like to separate the art from the artist. So my view is, with any performer, even if whether I like them as a person or not, or think I like them as a person, or what I think of them as a person, I try not to let that cloud my judgment.
Yeah.
About the music.
I have this discussion quite a lot when people say, when you obviously I make no secret about my favourite band of all time is Oasis. And a lot of people don't, when they say they don't like them, and you ask them why, it's because, Liam's a knob or Noel's a knob. It's like, yeah, but who they are doesn't really matter, does it?
It doesn't matter.
It's the output. But then I suppose you've got bands like Lost Prophets, obviously Gary Glitter, people like that who, I'm not. Yeah, I suppose what Jerry Lee Lewis, it's slightly different, isn't it? I mean, when he married his cousin, it was legal where he came from, and though we frown upon it, people from these isles frown about people who eat cockroaches and stuff like that. But it's whatever your sort of. So I suppose in his eyes he wasn't doing anything wrong, but in our eyes you're like, yeah, that's a little bit, yeah.
I mean, when it was even in the 1950s in Britain, it was seen as being quite shocking. So it's not as if we've become more liberal and the view has changed. People were just as shocked about it then as they probably would be now. And although let's not forget that sort of thing does go on in cultures around the world even now. So it's not exactly, it's not just something that's from the past. But I'm not trying to defend that in any way whatsoever. But it's just a fact about his life. And of course, it did affect his career, and it changed his career. He didn't have the commercial success afterwards that he had before. And for many people, it was a cut-off point that they wouldn't listen to his music because of that. So I suppose everybody has got their own individual cut-off point as to what they're prepared to tolerate from artists that they like. I mean, it's easy to not listen to someone's music if you don't like that music very much anyway, or you're never that devoted to it.
Mariah Carey.
If you're a fan of an artist and you find out something about them that you don't like about them, something that they've done, etc., where do you then draw the line?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Kasabian, and the majority of them are Leicester fans. So,
well, yeah, I mean,
that's almost as bad as marrying your 13-year-old cousin.
Yeah, see, everyone's got their own red lines, haven't they?
That's one of mine. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, I can think of a lot of artists who I like that have got certain episodes from their lives where they haven't necessarily behaved particularly well.
I mean, I think you can count anybody in a rock band in that, can't you?
Well, exactly, and this is my question. Jerry Lee Lewis got, to use the modern parlance, cancelled, and he really did.
The modern what?
Modern parlance, the way of speaking, the modern phrase that you use.
The modern parlance.
He was cancelled. He was cancelled. That's what you'd say nowadays, wouldn't you?
Parlance.
Because people stopped buying his records and
parlance.
Parlance. Yeah.
Parlance.
So, yeah, I mean, it did damage his career at the time.
Yeah, he went down more country route, didn't he?
After that, he kind of did that. But yeah, I'm just trying to think of others. I mean, obviously there are some very notorious characters from music history, but they're not necessarily considered great artists or that important to music history. So it was comparatively easy to cancel them.
Look at John Lennon. John Lennon has admitted in interviews to, beating his wife.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people say, it only happened on one occasion or whatever, and I don't know exactly what happened.
That's one too many, though, still.
But he did, yes, I'm not trying to excuse it, but, he would say, it didn't happen on a regular basis. Maybe that's a bit different. Maybe I don't know, but...
and I suppose in the modern day era, you've got, like I say, Lost Prophets, R. Kelly.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Which is what his family in Liverpool call him.
These figures are not necessarily Kelly in Liverpool. I've just got that. Where am I going with this? Yeah, some of these figures are not necessarily, great artists. Gary Glitter, no. Rolf Harris, etc. It was pretty easy for people to cancel them. But then if it's someone significant like John Lennon, you'll find a way to justify...
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, again, of course, none of those allegations was ever proven in court.
No. And when you look more into it, I don't think those... I think it's not as cut and dry as the memes and jokes that get sent to you are...
Well, it's certainly not, no, given what I've read about it. There are some inconsistencies in the statements that have been made by some of the
I personally... Yes, my personal opinion on that thingy is, I think Jackson himself was very naive and was taken advantage of, and people preyed on his childlike behaviours. Is that the word? Is that what I'm sort of looking for?
Yeah, his unusual tendencies. Yeah, it's difficult to know for sure, but I would certainly like to believe that aspect of it. But the question is, if those allegations had been true about a major artist, would that then put you off listening or enjoying the music, or would it? This is. I mean, one example of this I can think of is Phil Spector, because Phil Spector was a bit of but he was known to have been a bit of an odd character all through his career. But in the 60s, he didn't do anything really bad. I mean, he was an eccentric record producer, and that was that. And he worked, of course, with even the former Beatles, who were certainly with Harrison and Lennon. And then he ended up in prison
someone
for murder, shooting a woman, and basically being abusive to her as well. He was abusive to women, I think, before he actually murdered somebody. But that happened quite a long time after he was making all these records. So can people then separate that and say, well, those records were made back then, and then he did that later? We're just going to...
See, I wouldn't have any issue listening to the Lee Lewis, not to be confused with his half-cousin, Leona. But I don't think I could. I think there's something in my moral compass that would stop me putting on a Lost Prophets song. I don't think I could bring myself to do that. And obviously, there is a little bit of a crossover, because the opening track on Morning Glory does have the sample from, Gary Glitter of Hello. It's good to be back.
Yeah.
But even that makes me feel a little bit. Yeah, that makes me feel a little bit sort of uneasy, because he's still sort of in the public domain, isn't he? Glitter.
Yeah. Is it worse if the artist is the singer? Because, of course, Phil Spector is a producer. He doesn't sing on the record. You're not really hearing Phil Spector's personality on the record. You're just hearing the productions.
I think the singer's always the focal point, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas
I think that's who you associate with more.
The guy from the Lost Prophets, that was the singer, wasn't it? That was convicted.
It was,
of abusing girls.
I watched a documentary about him. He was not right in the head, is the best way to politely describe him.
Yeah, so I don't know the music very well. I don't know what he wrote in his lyrics. I mean, was his music pretty? Yeah, so I probably wouldn't want to listen to it anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but if I was going to put, I mean, that morbid curiosity, and I'll do it now actually, because I did look at it after I watched this documentary on him. It doesn't put that many people off, because I tell you what, Jerry Lee Lewis on Spotify. Let's have a look. Jerry Lee Lewis, artist, still gets 3.2 million monthly listeners. Gary Glitter, artist, gets 679,000 monthly listeners. Lost Prophets only get 58,000 listeners. And then our friend from Liverpool, R. Kelly, gets 4.8 million monthly listeners.
So how many does... I'm just trying to think of a contemporary of Lewis who's also no longer around, but Carl Perkins. How many does Carl Perkins get? Not that there's any actual controversy around Carl Perkins, but he was a sort
of... What did we say about Lewis? About 22 million or something?
3 million, you said. 3.2 million, I think.
Carl Perkins, artist, gets 413,000 monthly listeners.
So he's not as many as Lewis. What does Little Richard get? I'm going to go through every rock and roll singer now, see how many they get.
Until you get somebody on parity with
just
Lee Lewis.
How Lewis compares with the
2.2 million.
So Lewis gets more than Little Richard.
Yeah.
That's interesting. What does Chuck Berry get?
Here we go, Chuck Berry. I've just had a notification up. My battery is running low. Chuck Berry gets 8.3 million, so far outweighs the Lee Lewis.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, this is Spotify, so this is the younger half of of Western society, I suppose, mainly listening to that.
Yeah. I tell you what about let's go for Roy Orbison around the same time. He gets a lot more, 8.7 million. So
same generation.
Yeah.
But he's got a few songs that are particularly popular, hasn't he? So there's some of them have got songs that stand out a bit, one or two that get most of their airplay from one or two of these songs. But we're off the track of separating the art from the artist, though.
Yeah.
So there's the idea of artists being, having done something really controversial, maybe, sexual abuse, whatever. And that, obviously, I can understand why that would put some people off. But what about in terms of just thinking the artist is a complete pillock, or you just find their personality really, you just don't like them? Does that ever put you off listening to somebody?
Yeah. Mariah Carey.
So is that the kind of the diva thing?
Yeah, I don't like Mariah Carey. I don't really listen to her because of she just doesn't appeal to me in that sort of way. And there probably are others as well that when I think about it, I don't listen to them because I think they're just I'd have to sort of think about it. Mariah Carey is always the first one that comes to mind because because she is who she is.
I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I mean the Liam Gallagher thing. I mean, to me, and I say this is probably with him, there's as much of a public front going on as anything else. But Liam does act like a bit of a prat at times. But to me, that's kind of part of the package with him.
Well, you kind of want that from your rock stars, don't you?
With him, I kind of want that because that's kind of what he's always been. So if Liam Gallagher wasn't being like that, he wouldn't really be Liam Gallagher.
You feel like you're being shortchanged.
Yeah. Whereas I can enjoy, I don't know, who was I listening to the other? I could enjoy, say, Bruce Springsteen or somebody, yeah? I mean, he doesn't act like a prat or do the sort of things that Liam Gallagher does. You know, he acts pretty much like a sensible, nice guy. And that, his music doesn't need him to act like a dangerous, slightly out of control rock star to be appealing. But and it wouldn't really fit with him if he did act like that. But with Liam, if Liam acted as sensibly as Bruce Springsteen, he'd be slightly boring somehow. But I don't think that Bruce Springsteen's boring because he's sensible, because that's just who he is. I suppose it depends on whether they're just being themselves, doesn't it? I suppose. That's what I suppose I like, is want them to be authentically them. Ben has disappeared. I'm sure I was just nodding there because I thought maybe he was saying something and I couldn't hear him, but it does seem to be the case that he did actually disappear from the feed. I wonder whether he'll come back on. Shall we just wait and see if he reappears? I reckon he'll try and log back on. Don't know whether it's his internet connection or my internet connection. I'll blame it on his internet connection, I think. Don't you reckon? Yeah, we'll blame it on Ben's connection. Let's just see if he returns while we continue to have this discussion. How do you feel about this, viewer? Are there any artists that you won't listen to because, not just because you don't like their music, but because you find something very objectionable about them, something they've done, or just their general personality? And is there any artists where you used to enjoy the music and then you've been put off them because of something, maybe something about them, and that's actually caused you not to listen to them anymore? Have you got any examples of that? And do you have any red lines for this kind of thing? Everyone puts their red line in a different place. That'll be interesting to know if you have any theories on that. And Ben still hasn't reappeared. Shall I look at my phone and see if he's See if he sent any kind of message on here. I can't see anything. No, he's not trying to text me by the look of it. I wonder where he's gone. So I just let's see if he's still there. I'll send a message saying, "Are you still there?" Let's see if he comes back on that. I must admit, I was quite impressed by how well he'd informed himself about Jerry Lee Lewis. I was quite impressed by that. Here we go. Oh no, it's not Ben. Someone else texting me. I don't think he's going to come back, viewer. So with that, he's back. I was just doing him. I was going into a monologue. I was about to wrap it up, but you come back just in the nick of time. You saved the viewers from having to hear me.
My laptop died, my internet went off.
You sound like you're underwater.
Oh, do I? 1 second. Let me take these headphones out. 1 second. Production quality.
That's better. That's better. That was that's less like a fish tank.
My laptop died. I was too late getting my charger in, and my internet died. We've been having some internet connection problems, haven't we? So,
see, I just told viewers that we agreed with each other that we would blame you and your internet connection on your computer for that loss of Ben, and we were quite correct in that
aspersion.
That conclusion.
Yeah, you were. Yeah. It was my internet. Just cut me off. You were mid-flow. You were talking about Liam and Bruce Springsteen was the last thing I heard.
Yeah, what was I saying? That if Liam behaved as sensibly as Bruce Springsteen, I would think that he'd gone a bit boring. But then if Bruce Springsteen, I don't think Bruce Springsteen's boring for being sensible. He's just himself. No. He's just who he is. I think, but with Liam, I want Liam to be like that, even though that persona may not be what he's really like. So it's all a bit odd, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Well, I think if you look at, and I've just bought as well the 30th anniversary 7-inch single of Supersonic. The line is in there. You've got to be yourself because you can be no one else. So, yeah,
this is true.
You've got to be that, haven't you? I think if you were faking it, you'd get found out, and if you were trying to suppress it, you'd get found out. So you've got to have a little bit of it, haven't you? And I think some of it is a defense mechanism with some. You look at, singers perceived as arrogant. I think you've got to have a certain amount of arrogance to do what you do. So, and who wants a really? I mean, I don't mind Coldplay, but we certainly don't want a world full of Chris Martins. You want that, and I don't mean that disparagingly. I mean that in a way as you need an eclectic mix of people. I think so. And you've got to be able to sort of look at them and go, well, do you know what? He is a bit of a dick, but the tunes are mega, and that's what matters. Can't all be Phil Collins.
So that kind of wraps it up in a way, viewer. We have discussed separating the art from the artist. Are there any crimes for which it basically means that artists have cancelled themselves and you couldn't possibly listen to them anymore?
I will have a real thought about that one. I'm going to have a real thought about the artists that I can't listen to because I think they're a bunch of sponges.
Yeah. I can't think of any... Well, I can think of artists that I might not become a big fan of because maybe they don't appeal to me quite as much. But if a record is good, it's really good, then I think I generally will say it's good, even though I think
sometimes you have to begrudgingly be like, high five, you've done well there.
And I kind of like being able to do that because it kind of shows that you've appreciated just what they've done and put them out of your mind, and
Therefore, you are appreciating the art and not the artist, Philster.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I kind of sometimes like to be able to like something by people that I don't like. Does that make any sense?
No, I know what you mean. A prime example is me and the three boys from Take That. When I was at school, used to take the mick out of them, and now I appreciate Gary Barlow as a songwriter. There we go. You like Taylor Swift? I don't mind a bit. Take that.
There you go. Guilty pleasures all round. And the question is, could you get past people supporting Leicester? And it seems you have done. So, maybe there's no limit to your ability to separate the art from the artist.
Possibly.
With that, viewer, thanks for watching this disjointed conversation. We'll make another one. Maybe we'll make another one with Ben on his mobile like that. But until the next one, thanks for watching. Take care.